The opinions expressed by the host and guests in this show are not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense.
Good morning, CHD. It is Monday, the 3rd of November, 2025. We are live here at CHD TV. We have a very important show for you this morning. After this segment about the Merck exposure lawsuit, we're going to bring on Mothers-to-Be with a birth story of Naomi, our very own Naomi from CHD TV, and Bella. But first, we want to talk about this, and it's, again, crucial that you all learn from this. Let's bring up the headline now, please. Okay, family sues Merck, says daughter's death caused by mum's exposure to chemicals in contaminated workplace. A Georgia family is suing pharmaceutical giant Merck, alleging toxic exposure at the company's now demolished Albany plant caused their daughter's fatal brain cancer. Attorneys say the lawsuit is more than a case. It's a wake-up call for workplace safety and corporate accountability. And we are delighted this morning to have that law firm, Beasley Allen Law Firm. We're going to have Parker Miller and Matt Griffin. Good morning, and thank you for being here so early live on CHD TV.
Good morning, Polly. Thank you for having us.
Good morning.
Good morning. Well, this, I read it in the Defender, and it really struck home. I mean, look at this beautiful 26-year-old woman that died. Well, why don't you talk us through exactly what happened bit by bit? We've got a little bit of a longer segment on this because we feel this is so important for our viewers to know about this. Tragic.
Sure, Paul, I'll be happy to do that. So Seville's mother, Colleen, worked at the Merck factory. She began working there in the mid-90s and worked there until the plant was shut down in 2007. And unbeknownst to Colleen, while she was working there, she was exposed to elevated and dangerous levels of a variety of chemicals. And what's worse is she became pregnant with two daughters while she was employed at Merck. And unbeknownst to her, she was exposing both of her unborn daughters to these dangerous chemicals. And unfortunately, 16 to 17 years later, not just Seville, but her younger sister, Lilia, were both diagnosed with rare forms of brain cancers just 3 weeks apart.
It's absolutely shocking because most people have no idea, Parker, you know, when they're working in an environment that they could be working with chemicals. I mean, we all know in our movement who wants to work at Merck anyway, but you don't know where you're working when you're pregnant and what the outcome can be. How concerned should we be about where we work?
Well, I think that's what this case really highlights is that, you know, workplaces need to be safe for all workers, including pregnant workers. You know, if you're dealing with a physical hazard, typically you'll see that physical hazard and you can avoid it, you can guard against it. We see that in product liability cases all the time. But when you're dealing with toxic exposure, the problem is a lot of these chemicals are odorless. They're clear, and even if you can smell them, you have really no idea what you're being exposed to. Matt mentioned a second ago, there were numerous chemicals at issue, including toluene, benzene, formaldehyde, cyanide, and ethyl acetate, as well as methylene chloride, which is an extremely dangerous chemical. And so you have people that are working in administrative jobs that are not scientists, they're not chemists. They have no idea what they're being exposed to. And when they're being exposed to them every day for 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, the results can be catastrophic.
Yeah, so the question is some people may say, well, you can't prove it came from that. It could be anything that happened to as in childhood or vaccines or anything like that. How can you two as lawyers prove that it came from Merck?
Sure. Well, that is certainly, that can be a challenging process. But at Beasley Allen, when we first began investigating this case on behalf of Seville's family, both her husband and her mother, you know, the first thing we looked at is the science behind the chemicals that Parker just mentioned. And the fact of the matter is that there is a body of scientific literature and studies that show that in utero exposure, in other words, when a baby is in utero and is exposed to a variety of these chemicals are not only hazardous to the mother, but they can cross the blood-brain barrier as well as the placental barrier. And so that is how these chemicals pose such hazards to, again, not just the workers, but their unborn children. And so these cases are challenging, but again, at Beasley Allen, we have somewhat of a track record, and we work with a variety of experts who will be disclosed at the appropriate time, throughout this lawsuit. But what we do is we find the right people, the right scientists, the right doctors who can provide the links so that we can show that not only was Colleen exposed to dangerous and elevated levels of these chemicals, but what the ultimate and horrible result of that exposure was. And in this case, it was Seville's untimely and tragic death.
And so Merck must have known that these chemicals are bad. Why aren't we they should be warning pregnant people or anybody working there about these chemicals. They must have known.
When you're making the type of drugs and dealing with the type of chemicals that Merck's dealing with, they're required to monitor the workplace for those chemicals. And so, as we were saying earlier, Colleen she worked on the administrative side. She wasn't a chemist. She wasn't a scientist. That does make it challenging when you're investigating it. But the good thing is there's a lot of data out there about this plant in particular and all the issues that it had. And we were able to look at that data and see the types of chemicals that were circulating around that workplace. And what's interesting is, Matt mentioned a second ago when this plant closed. Well, in 2011, the EPA actually released a statement saying that toluene and methyl chloride were in the groundwater and in the soils all around this plant at dangerous levels. So we know that those chemicals were there because they were required to track them, which does raise your question, why didn't they do more?
And so what does the actual lawsuit allege that Merck did wrong?
Well, the basic allegations of the lawsuit are that Merck, as you just referenced, Polly, that Merck knew or should have known that it was releasing these dangerous chemicals and exposing its workers. And Merck knew or should have known that pregnant workers in particular were at very high risk of being exposed. And so they should have had a cleaner work environment. They should have captured these releases of these chemicals. And the bottom line, as we allege, they should not have allowed any employees, in particular pregnant employees, to be exposed to these chemicals at these levels. And had they done so, then Seville would still be with us today.
And so why did the family decide to go ahead and do this against Merck?
It's a really difficult process, and it's always client specific. I would say 99% of the clients that we represent have never been involved in a lawsuit before. They don't want to be in the litigation process at all. They come to us and they say, we want you to investigate this because we want some clarity on what may have happened. And oftentimes we have to tell them we either can't help or we can't really find an answer. But after a year-long investigation, we were able to bring to them the information that we felt like it really made it clear to us on what caused this. But ultimately, they've got to make the decision on whether they want to take that next step forward. Because as you can imagine, it doesn't end with the lawsuit. They know that Merck is a giant company. They can pick whatever lawyers they want, and they can combine those with other lawyers and fight against them and try and wear them down. And it takes a significant level of courage, determination, persistence, and truly passion for justice in order to proceed with a case like this. People like to say it's about the lawyers. It's about the clients. It's about their willingness to go forward in a matter of this significance.
Parker and Matt, we keep looking at that picture of that beautiful young woman. She was 26 and she just got married not long before, had a whole life ahead of her. Can you tell us anything about what Merck has taken from the Seville family? Because look at this. I can't imagine what that mother's going through. 2 of her children with this awful brain cancer.
Polly, words truly aren't enough or adequate to describe the loss that this family has suffered. One of the more tragic aspects of this, like I mentioned earlier, not only were the sisters diagnosed with their brain cancers 3 weeks apart, they both underwent a very long and difficult battle with chemotherapy and radiation therapy. And Seville was actually in remission, and that's when she met the love of her life, Chandler. That's when they were married. They were married in November of 2022. Just 2 or 3 months after she was married, the brain cancer came back and it had spread. And a month before she could celebrate her 1 year wedding anniversary, she died. A family lost a daughter, a sister, and a husband lost the love of his life. And so, as the father of 2 daughters myself, I can't imagine the loss that this family has gone through. But I will say, as Parker alluded to, this family is resolute. There's some of the, it is a true honor and privilege to be able to represent this family in this lawsuit. As Parker said, I don't think any of them want to be involved in a lawsuit. All they really want is their daughter or their wife to be back. But unfortunately, because of what Merck did, because of what Merck exposed Colleen to when she was pregnant with her 2 beautiful daughters, the lawsuit is the only answer that this family has left.
And good for them. Merck need to be held accountable for that. And how is the other daughter doing?
As you can probably imagine, you have your good days and your bad days. You have your days where you feel like you can get through, and then you have days where you miss your best friend, your sister. But then you also have to think about, is this coming back like it did to my sister? And I know the result when it came back. That's something that she's going to have to live with. And that is tragic. It's personal. And it's something her family bears as well, because they watch their daughter. And I mean, no, we always hear this. Nobody should have to bury their daughter. But all of us out there that have had friends, family, that have had horrible cancer, it's truly horrific to watch play out.
It truly is. I mean, this is exactly why I wanted to bring you on, because the importance of being pregnant and where you are. And we were trying to cover this in all aspects at CHD TV. But so then let's talk about the fact that the Merck plant closed down. Do we know why it closed down?
Well, we know what Merck said. We know the reasons that they stated publicly in 2006 and 2007 for the reason the plant was closing down. It was allegedly part of a broader corporate restructuring. That is the reason that Merck has stated publicly, and the reasons that Merck has, again, stated publicly at the time through press releases and also included in various filings with the SEC. I think anytime you get involved in a case like this, there's lots of information that you don't know when you file the lawsuit, and there's information that we will learn as we go through this process. And I believe that there may be other reasons other than a corporate restructuring for the reasons that this plant closed. But right now, I think we'll find that out as time goes by.
Polly, one thing that I think, just to add on to what Matt said, that I think is important for your viewers to know, they tried to sell this plant after they closed it, and they ended up having to demolish the plant. And I believe, Matt, I can't remember, is it still on the market today? And it's really because of the condition they left the property in.
That's correct.
Yeah. And that says a lot. And that actually speaks to an even greater concern, because we're not just talking about, individuals working in a dangerous workplace. We're talking about, what is the condition of your neighborhood, your city, your area, when that plant that's been there for 50 years doing whatever they're doing behind the fence that nobody can see, and then they leave that and go somewhere else. We haven't really gotten into, because it hasn't been our focus, what's the state of the community, what's the state of the groundwater. But that's going to be an interesting question to answer as well.
So, Parker and Matt, why did Beasley Allen law firm take it? You're taking on Merck, and my words, not yours, one of the most darkest big pharma that there is. You're taking them on. I mean, that's brave. Why would you do that?
Well, Polly, I'll put the question to you a little differently. Why would we not do that? if not us, then who could this family turn to? Beasley Allen has a long track record of not being afraid of taking on some of the biggest corporations, not just in this country, but across the globe. We've been involved literally for decades. We've been involved in cases like this where we go up against corporations who have endless money to throw at a problem. And at the end of the day, we're not scared of that fight. We believe strongly in the justice system, and a court of law is the only place, unfortunately, that Seville's family can turn to in light of this tragedy. And it is a true honor. It is true honor that that this family has chosen Beasley Allen to take this fight to Merck, and we will do everything we can to see justice through for this family and for Seville.
Holly, it's really hard. It's really hard to work at this place if you don't believe in what you're doing, because they pretty much tell us when we start, you're going to operate at the highest level and you're going to take on the strongest, most powerful bullies on the block. And so there's a long history of that, from BP to the opioid manufacturers to, Johnson and Johnson, who literally has been saying for the last several months that if you can just take Beasley Allen off the case, then maybe we can have some breathing room. So I think all of our lawyers, our staff, and everybody that's committed to what we do takes a lot of pride in making sure that the small voices are heard amongst these Goliaths.
Well, thank God for your law firm and for all that you're doing. What's the timeline on this? What can we expect?
I'll speak to it, and I'm sure Matt will have something to say as well. This is the very beginning phase. We've done a lot of work to investigate, but we're going to go through the formal discovery process. They've already filed a motion trying to get out of the case, which we knew they would. You're hopeful that a defendant will come forward and try and do the right thing. They really don't ever do that. They're much more concerned with trying to, do what they always do, which is, if they want something, they're going to do whatever they can to get it, and they're going to try and wear this family down. And so we're fully expecting that through the discovery process. Then we'll go to expert discovery, then motion practice, when they'll try and get the case tossed again, and then we'll go straight to trial. So it'll be a long process.
Well, you must make sure that we are totally updated. What can we, the people, do to help? I get 100% prayers for that family, for protection. But what can we do as people to help with this? Because this is so important. And I know our viewers will feel nothing but huge sadness and heartbreak for this family.
Yeah, well, in terms of just following along with any updates, our firm has a very active presence on social media. That's probably the easiest place for your viewers to follow along, not just this case, but the other cases that our law firm is investigating and seeking justice for other families and hurt ones. And, overall, if nothing else, I just hope this raises awareness for your viewers, and it makes us all step back and think, is it okay for these companies who make massive profits year over year over year to have total disregard for not only their employees, but in particular, those employees who are pregnant? And I think the overwhelming answer to that is no.
Yeah. So what is your social media? Where do they follow you?
You can follow us. Beasley Allen has a Facebook page. We're constantly providing information to the public. I've got an Instagram account. It's J. Parker Miller, ESQ. We also put out a publication across the country to tens of thousands of people. It's called the Jerry Beasley Report. You can go to our website, and it's free. And it's a significant amount of information about litigation across the country, not just toxic exposure litigation, but everything from drug defect litigation to medical devices to fraud, antitrust, as well as various product liability cases, tractor trailer cases, mass shootings. Everything is all there for your listeners to become aware of.
So Matt and Parker, what if someone is watching this program right now and they used to work there at Merck, and they have information, but they're afraid. Merck is frightening. They're afraid. What protection, if any, do they have if they come to you with information?
Well, first of all, anyone who would come forward to us with information would, unless that individual volunteered to become an actual witness in this lawsuit, then Merck would never know that they talked to us. And so they would absolutely be protected in conversations that they would want to have with us. And if anyone does have information, I would encourage them to reach out to us.
Yeah, I would just say that if you have information that's going to help your community, that's going to help this family, then come forward and let the truth be known. The truth to me is the biggest defense against anything else. And never mind the fact that, ultimately, our founding fathers made sure, and this is something that your listeners need to be aware of more than anything else. The trial by jury is not some just throwaway topic. It is one of the founding principles of our union. And so hopefully a jury of our peers will make a decision on this case at some point, as they should in every case. And that to me is the ultimate protection of the truth and really our union.
Parker Miller and Matt Griffith, you are for sure doing God's work, and thank you so much. Please do keep us updated on CHDTV. If you've got anything you want to come on and update our people, we'd be so grateful to have you on. And please do give that family our immense love, because I know that that's what our viewers would want, and we're here for them for anything that we can do. It's an absolutely tragic story, and I can't thank Beasley Allen Law Firm enough for exposing this. So we will definitely be praying for you all for protection and for you Godspeed on getting the truth. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you for having us.
All right, everyone. Well, thank goodness for people like Parker and Matt, because this is really important that we expose this kind of situation that's going on. And if you have a story, if you have something you want to talk about, if you want to talk to the Beasley Allen Law Firm, then please do contact us or contact them, and we will make sure that happens, because we have to take these people down, because it's about the truth. And that's what's happened to our children in so many different ways. So talking of truth, we're going to go on now to something much more uplifting. And that is Isabella Yon and Naomi. And they're going to be talking about Naomi's birth. And so we go from one sad situation to a positive situation, but all telling the truth at the same time. So here's Mothers to Be.
Hello, hello. Good morning, CHD TV. My name is Isabella Yon, and welcome to our Mothers to Be segment, where we chat everything from preconception all the way through pregnancy and birth and that wonderful first year of life. And I'm so excited for our guest today, the amazing Naomi Smith, who is a very good friend of mine, but also you may know her from her amazing work behind the scenes here at CHD TV. She works so hard and really makes it all happen. So welcome, Naomi. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Bella.
So excited to chat all things birth, especially, but also just kind of natural-minded motherhood and just your experiences with your kiddos. So why don't you kick us off just telling people a little bit about yourself, maybe your family, and the season of motherhood you're in right now?
Yeah, so I'm Naomi, and I work here at CHD TV. I've been married for 8 years, and I have 2 little boys, 3 and 1, and they were both born at home. So
I love it. I love it. So let's kick off with pregnancy. Were you always planning for a natural birth, or did something kind of shift your perspective along the way that made you decide to go that route?
I was always planning for a natural birth. So I think it was a journey to get to when I got pregnant, and then knowing the moment I was pregnant, I knew I was going to have a home birth. But yes, I just knew I wanted my sister-in-law. She had a home birth 6 years or so before I got pregnant, and I was like, why would you do that? That is so wild. There's hospitals around that do this easily. Why would you ever make your life complicated? But then a lot happened with my own health and gut issues and all that that I changed. I mean, changed a lot of my lifestyle and how I ate and things related to all good health. And and then COVID also accelerated the process for me to dive all into, I don't know, alternative health as we call it today, even though it's like how it used to be a while back. And when I got pregnant, I knew right away I was going to have a home birth, because also in Kentucky, there are no birth centers. So it was just either at home or at the hospital, and hospital was not a place I wanted to be for having my baby.
Yeah, that's so interesting about Kentucky. I didn't know that. I know each state has different laws, but that's really interesting to know. So you knew you knew you wanted to do a home birth. How did you go about finding a midwife?
Great question. I Googled midwives and I tried to unfortunately, where I was in Kentucky, there were not a lot of options. And then I had three non-negotiables that I was dealing with. Like, I wanted my midwife to be okay with me going beyond 42 weeks. I wanted my midwife to be okay for me to have a baby at home if baby was breech. I wanted my midwife to be okay for me to have a baby at home if I had twins, because twins run in my family. And so that ruled out several options. But I found a midwife and I met with her, and that's really important. Like, whatever you read online could be great or not so good, but really meeting the person the midwife in person makes such a big difference, because you want to, I mean, that's who's going to be there at your birth, who's going to follow you through pregnancy, and you just want to make sure you connect with that person.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, because also, a midwife who connects with one person might not connect with you. And I experienced that. So I totally agree with Naomi. Interview midwives, whoever you have access to. Things like your three non-negotiables are great, and just really writing a list of your priorities and what matters to you, and then interviewing these people and seeing who you connect with and who feels safe to you and who you feel like has a good rapport. Because, like Naomi says, they're in your space, they're in your house, you're in your home, and birthing your baby. I love it. So let's just jump straight into your first child
Yes.
birth story. Take us all the way through from when those contractions first started coming.
Yeah. Well, they started in the middle of the night at 3. I woke up, I had cramps, and I thought, oh, weird. Like, I don't know. It's like I had period cramps again. And I I tried to go back to sleep. I just thought, oh, whatever. And then they woke me up again, and I went to the bathroom, and and I saw some color in going to the bathroom. And so I figured, oh, this is labor. Like, the mucus plugs beginning to loosen, all this stuff. And I got really excited. And I know you're supposed to sleep, but I could not sleep anymore. So I just got up, went to the kitchen, baked bread, and
Love
and
it.
went on with my day. It was a really hard labor, I think. I was expectant of waves and it being a process and having to be really open and welcoming of however baby wanted to come, and but it was a lot harder than I had imagined. And I know it can vary. Like, even though it was hard, I know it can also be very easy for someone else, or for me, another baby. So it was just what it was, and just had to go with it, because there's only one way out, at least the way I wanted. Um, yeah, and so it was a total of 24 hours, from the very beginning to the baby being born, my son being born. And that includes, like, early labor and all the stuff. I would say I got into active labor at around, for sure, by 5 p.m. And then baby boy was born at, Leif Jacob was born at 3 in the morning, 3:30 something in the morning. And it was hard, but my husband was so, so, so supportive. He believed in me the whole time. Um, like I like I said, it was very hard, the labor, and I kept wondering why baby wasn't here yet, why was it was taking so long, and in my head, all of a sudden I understood why women get epidurals. I understood why women schedule C-section voluntarily. Like it changed my perspective. And I had in my head at one point, I really like felt really low, and it was very hard mentally. And I needed to just be with Paul. And so my doula, who was my sister-in-law who had her home births, they all left, and it was just me and Paul. And I couldn't tell him, I couldn't word it that it was too hard for me, but that's how I felt. But he just looked at me, and he didn't say much either, but actually whatever he said was probably very lame. But his eyes and his expression and how he looked at me and his demeanor, like I knew he knew I could do this. And he just trusted me. He knew, and it was like, everything's good, everything's normal, you're safe here, like everything's great. And we're gonna have this baby very soon. And sure enough, baby came later, many hours later, but baby came. And it was great to be home, because as soon as I had the baby, he was on my chest. And um, we, in hindsight, we cut the cord too soon, but it's okay. Like second baby was a different story. But anyway, he was on my chest, and I was very, very exhausted. And the midwife suggested to cut the cord so that he could, like, my husband could hold him or something like that. So we waited till he was white and no more, not pulsing anymore, but I still had the placenta inside of me. So it was like within 20 minutes that the cord was cut, and then my husband held the baby, and then I birthed the placenta, which is a very important part of birth. I birthed it alone. I pulled it out when I felt it was time, and then I moved to the bed, and it was all very peaceful. And then I was, yeah, very exhausted. It's funny how I imagined being all like so in love with my baby right away. And I didn't have those feelings. Like I had the conscience in my head, like this is my baby, and I want to hold him and I want to be with him. But I was also like, I need a minute to recover. Um,
Totally.
yeah. So yeah, I loved being home. And then I did tear, and so my midwife did stitches, but it was all at home. And I had my own baked bread, freshly baked bread that I had for breakfast with eggs and meat and all the amazing food that you can only make at home. And it was great. And then I slept so long. Yeah, loved it.
There really is nothing like a home birth. And I think my favorite part of my home birth are crawling into bed. Right.
Yes.
I mean, I literally had the baby in the tub, and then 2 feet away was my bed, and I just plopped in and cozied up with my sweet little newborn, and it was amazing. Let's chat postpartum, because I think one of the benefits about home birth, at least for me, one of the main reasons I wanted to do a home birth is so I also didn't have to deal with bullying in the hospital when it came to newborn interventions and the choices that I wanted to make for my family. Did you choose to do any newborn interventions with your kids, specifically things like the eye ointment and cord clamping, Hep B, things like that? And what made you come to that decision?
Yeah, so no, we didn't. Well, we didn't do vitamin K shots or drops. We didn't do eye ointment because I have no infections of any, like there's no reason for it. And we didn't do anything. Our son was born and he was on me, and then on my husband, and then on my sister-in-law. I love her, it's fine. And then back on me, and then had milk whenever he was ready to nurse, and which was pretty soon after. And that's it. That's all we did. We didn't do anything. The midwife, she weighed him, and they did like a assessment, but it was after I had been with my baby for like at least an hour, maybe two, which I wouldn't want her to be handling such a little cute little baby so soon when all the baby needs is mom right away.
So true. So true. Totally agree. Okay, so let's chat second birth. Did you plan it differently? Did you keep things similar? Did you feel more confident going in?
So I planned it differently. I had a different midwife. It was ended up being like a free birth with birth attendants,
Nice.
because I I wanted less interventions than I had in my first birth. And my first birth was very, very fine, but I wanted more of just me with baby. And so the second pregnancy, I didn't get any ultrasounds by choice. My midwife would always feel the baby, and I knew exactly where the placenta was, and I didn't have any fear of baby being in any kind of distress. And actually, the my anatomy scan with my first baby, I just did the one anatomy scan. That was a stressful experience for me because of the bullying. Like that's something yeah, so I didn't want to go back to the hospital because that was more stressful for me. So yeah. But so second baby, my midwife, it was a different midwife. She didn't call herself a midwife, but she was in midwifery school, and I connected with her so well, and was very confident in what she could do. She was very transparent with her limitations, what she knew, what she didn't, and that just was fine with me. I wanted a heart connection with my midwife, and with her, I had that. With my first, I didn't, but it's what it was. So I also moved with when I was pregnant my second time. I moved to States at 38 weeks pregnant, and my midwife followed me. We were 5 hours away. Labor was very different. I had a lot of prodromal labor, so not false starts. It's just like my body was getting ready in its own way. But I called, because we were 5 hours apart, I called my midwife a couple times, several times, but she came down 2 times before baby was born because they were like intense enough and consistent enough. Like it was like, I don't know, maybe you need to come, maybe not. I will add that I had thought a lot about doing an actual free birth with my second. I was concerned about the people around me. Like maybe that was my anxiety, like while being pregnant. I wanted to make sure that people around me were gonna protect me and not like bully me in any way. But I'm very happy everybody was there. And I would do it all over again with the same people. So yeah, so when labor really started, my midwife was already at our house. She had come 2 days before because I had beginnings of labor again. And she just said she'd stick around because I was like 41 weeks and several days. He was born at 41 weeks and 5 days. So 41 weeks and 3 days. So she figured it would be soon. Might as well just stick around since she didn't have any plans exactly at that time. And so she came on Friday, and then Sunday is when my real labor started. But all day I had contractions on and off, and I just went shopping with my sister-in-law to like furnish our new place, and we went to eat somewhere. Like we did a lot of things. I couldn't stay home. With Leif Jacob, I was home all day during my labor, but with this one, it had been dragged out so much that I just needed to not think about it. So we did a lot of things. And then got home, had dinner with everyone, with my midwife and her assistant, and it was great, lovely dinner. And then I put my son to bed, and as soon as he's asleep, I start feeling a big contraction, and I'm thinking, all right, this is starting. And so I wanted to be alone, though. I was nervous about people in the house because I didn't want to perform. I felt like with people around, I felt like I was performing, which is part of why I didn't like having ultrasounds or having heartbeat checked, because I felt like I had to perform well. And even though it's not true, it's just how it is in my head. And so it was told Paul, and my midwives were very amazing. They just like, they really honored the space that I was in and left me alone, but were there if I needed. Like it was really great. And I just labored in my room the whole time, and it was odd because my contractions they never got consistent. It was like one here and then 30-minute break and then one here and then 10 minutes. And then anyway, it was so weird. So weird that when the whole night went through, so it started at 8:30 p.m. and baby was born at 8 a.m.
Okay.
But the whole night went through, I was nervous because I thought, what if this is like another 4 days? Um, but yeah, it ended up at one point I started feeling like I had to push. I was in the tub, and I was in the tub a lot. That really helped me, and I felt like I had to push, and so my body just started pushing. And baby's head started coming, um, and then he ended up being stuck, which it was, anyway, watching the video of his birth is kind of stressful to watch, but for me, but in hindsight, but when everything was happening, I was such at peace. Like God was in the room. My midwives, they love Jesus. So, everybody was praying, everybody was worshiping. It was just like silently because I didn't want sound. um, but I just trusted everyone in the room when I was in that moment. And my midwife had never, this was her first baby that she was the main attendant for. And so, the whole experience is in a way new to her, even though she had seen like hundreds of births. But anyway, she did what she needed to do for getting baby unstuck. First, she really let me change position and help baby on my own, how we can. And then it got to the point where there was nothing I can do. So she had to intervene and asked if I wanted her to intervene. And I'm like, of course I want you to intervene. But it was all about like informed consent kind of. And she wanted, it was a partnership. And anyway, he was born healthy. He cried right away and everything was well. But I will add one thing I appreciated with the prenatal care with my second midwife is that there was around 30 weeks, we had this questionnaire that my husband and I did with her. And it was questions to think about, like what if a transfer needs to happen for mom or for baby in labor or after birth, and then also what if a death happens, mom dies or baby dies, and it's not that those things will happen, but it makes you think through the responsibility, your choice, how are you gonna feel about it, and are you gonna regret your decision, or do you like, is there any change that needs to happen, or is this like, do you feel good about this? Is this a peaceful decision? Because sadly, babies die and moms die also at home. Not really at home, but anyway, it happens at the hospital too. At home, you see it on the news. If it happens at the hospital, you don't. But what I appreciated with that prenatal appointment was that it really made us think through these difficult questions and then make changes if we wanted to, needed to, and understand the responsibility that we have in the choices we make every day.
Yeah, I love that. It sounds like you had an amazing midwife. And I think what's so powerful about that second birth story is it really highlights the importance of a good birth team. And again, someone you feel really comfortable with, because what could have potentially in a hospital situation turned into a big stress and people running in, or the baby's stuck, and
Yeah.
ultimately interventions that you hadn't have asked for, you were able to stay really peaceful, it seemed, and,
Yes.
had the wisdom of this woman and your birth team to be able to safely guide baby out without any stress caused for you, baby, or anyone in the room. So I
Yeah.
love that. I think that's such an important highlight. So thank
Yeah,
you.
and there were no negative side effects afterwards. Like they were expecting me to hemorrhage maybe because that happens often with shoulder dystocias or baby to have like issues, and no one. I didn't even tear, and she had all of her hands to her wrist, past her
Yeah.
wrist in me. But that just shows how at peace we were and how much I trusted the people there, and that's really important, I think.
Yeah, that's amazing. I know we're running tight on time, but I do want to just briefly chat postpartum. How were your recoveries and postpartum experiences with both? Was there like a difference between them? Were they kind of similar?
They were different. Second one was much better. I
Interesting.
I stayed in bed almost for the first 2 weeks, mostly. I mean, I got up a little bit, of course, but I was just in my room with baby, and we had a meal train, which we didn't have the first time, and yeah, it was amazing. A lot more rest, and I felt so happy, so happy. Whereas with my first, I didn't really feel that birth high that people talk about.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think there was a lot of shock with how just my baby was born. And the tear was very painful, and I was just very exhausted. So there's a lot of recovery, and I still took it very slowly, but my mom was also at our house. She had just landed, which was very helpful in a way. And then in another way, it made me and my husband be more hosts towards her because she lives in a different country. So even though I was recovering, I also felt like I needed to take care of her, which I didn't need to, but that's just how I felt. And so the second postpartum, I didn't want any visitors for at least 2 weeks, which
Yeah.
I got. And that made it like so sweet. It was great.
Yeah, it's amazing the things you learn from your first birth experience, both the birth itself and then the postpartum experience, and then things that you change for next time and see, the benefits of the changes. I think we're going to have to bring you back on to chat all things natural parenting because there's so many questions that I want to ask you. But we do always close with a question, and I think that you probably have some great advice. And that is if you have one piece of advice for a new mama, someone who's pregnant or maybe just given birth, what would it be?
Um, that's it. I should have prepared for this one, but I think I think listen to your heart. That's
Mm.
the biggest one. Listen to your heart and do what resonates with you. You're gonna get so much noise on the outside, and you just figure out what's good for your heart, for your family. Yeah.
I totally agree. I think that is my also one piece of advice. I'm big on you know your baby better than anyone else, and you know what's best for your family. So trust that,
Yes.
and make those decisions. I love it. Naomi, thank you so much for coming on and sharing two really incredible but very different birth stories. I personally love listening to birth stories, whether I'm pregnant or not. So I know mamas will learn so much from your wisdom and from your experience. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to remind everyone watching that we have launched our Mothers to Be Blessing bag. So if you are an expectant mama or you know somebody who is pregnant, they are entirely free. You can go to our website and they are essentially these bags that have been curated with educational resources. So they're great if you know someone who maybe is new to learning or curious to learning. You can send them anonymously or write your name on them. And then they also have some cute jewelry and elderberry tea and things like that. So please go to our website and nominate yourself or others. We would love to bless you with a goodie bag. Thank you so much for joining us and tuning in, everyone. Naomi, thank you again, and we will see you all next week.
Hi, my name is Sarah Lindley Bailey.
And you had one child.
Yes.
Let's talk this through. So when you were pregnant with your daughter, tell us what happened.
So, Whenever I was pregnant with Taylor, it was back in 2015, 2014, and I was coerced into the flu shot. I did not want to take the flu shot. I was cornered. I was even stopped. They were like, oh, you'll be fine. There's so many British studies, medical studies, and I was very, very hesitant. And I tell everyone to trust their mama gut. I worked with children practically all my life. I was a professional nanny. I worked with deaf education. I also have a little bit of knowledge in veterinary medicine. And he couldn't provide me any medical studies, so I was hesitant. However, I had family that was there, and they were like, no, you really should listen to the doctor.
Listen to the doctor. So do you remember the kind of things the doctor said to you? Why you should have the flu shot while pregnant?
There was one situation where one of my friends did have the flu while she was pregnant, and that was the kind of like turning point of me deciding against my will of taking it, because I stayed with her in the hospital and whatnot during her pregnancy for a little while, and it was not easy for her. However, that was kind of like my eye-opening moment. I saw vaccine reactions in the veterinary field. My eyes were aware, but they weren't opened. And I wanted to see the studies, and he was like, oh, it's not published in the US.
So you took the flu shot?
Yes.
And how did you feel afterwards?
I have never felt the same since. I have soreness in the arm, of course, that's normal. I just felt very brain foggy. And shortly after my flu shot, I was at the school, and it was the first day back with the children after Christmas break. And something did not feel right. This was my first pregnancy, so I did not know how to feel, but it was unreal because just something wasn't feeling right. So he saw me within that 2-week mark or so, and that's whenever I had the flu shot. And it was unreal because I was having these contractions, or I was like, I think I'm having contractions, but I'm not sure, and called the nurse, and she said, well, come on in. It's probably nothing, but drove all the way from Cyprus all the way downtown Houston. And it was kind of like one of those situations where the doctor was like, okay, well, we're admitting you because you have 2-minute contractions.
How many weeks pregnant were you?
I was around the 26, 28, 30 mark. Somewhere around that. So she was...
And how long after the flu shot?
Around 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And I mean, again, I was just not feeling right ever since. And so they admitted me, they gave me medication that would stop the progression of the preterm labor, and I was on bed rest, and that was my eye-opening moment. And that's whenever I started researching myself and stopped really trusting the doctors.
So when was she born? How long did you?
So I did carry her full term. She was born in March 2015, and she was beautiful, she was bright, smart, strong, sassy. She was so amazing. She spoke 3-word sentences before she was 6 months old. She had over 100-word vocabulary, and math is not my strong suit. And I was about to hire an algebra tutor for her.
So when she was born, did she have hepatitis B and vitamin K?
She did have vitamin K, against my wish. It was more or less, oh, well, we had to use the forceps, so it's better if we do it now. It was not an easy delivery. So vitamin K was given, and hepatitis, I never really looked at her medical records to see if it was given
So you don't know if she had
I
that?
don't know.
And what about her keeping her on schedule with the vaccinations? Did you do the 2 months, 4 months?
No.
Nothing?
No.
So she had none at all?
None. She was so strong and healthy, and during December to March, I was reading and researching.
So when did she start to become ill?
So she started showing regression around 2. This was back in September of 2017. Again, she was super bright, 100-word vocabulary, and I never noticed a child say, I can do it, to me can do it. And it was shortly after the Hurricane Harvey.
Hurricane Harvey?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, and talk us through what you did.
So I went to her pediatrician. Well, she's learning French, she's learning Spanish. Again, super, super bright. And it was just ignored for a really long time.
And the symptoms were really just the speech?
It was the speech. It was the speech, and everything in my gut was like, something's not right. And I understand that, children may have words mixed up because of a different language. Totally understand. I worked with deaf education. I get it. And so I can understand that aspect. And I was like, oh, okay. But whenever it started getting progressively worse, that's whenever I was like, something's not right. And then they were like, oh, well, maybe it's autism. And I was like, if it's autism, I don't want that diagnosis. I don't want that label on her. And plus, the neurologist kept on rescheduling us time after time. And I was like, okay, maybe this is just, the way it is, and we'll just live with it. Although I did find her speech did improve whenever she was gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free. So I was crazy for restricting her diet.
So how did you get to this diagnosis of cancer?
So she was diagnosed with cancer. It was 4th of July. She had a reoccurring strep. Antibiotics and whatnot. And she had an eye ptosis, a droopy eye. And her pediatrician was like, that's strange. Never seen eye ptosis with strep. However, strep does funny things. And she was complaining about her knees hurting, her legs hurting, but she was growing like a weed, like most 4-year-olds are. And it was unreal because something was telling me to go to the ER. And I was medically gaslighted then too. I was going to have her go to the eye doctor. It was an open appointment, so I was driving from near the Woodlands to Kingwood because they had an opening and that saw children, and I was like, something's up. So someone told me to go to the eye doctor, and they actually would help me. So on the way to the eye doctor, she screamed a scream that I never heard her scream before, and I was like, to the ER. And so I went out to the Woodlands. I'll try not to say any names, but I went up to the Woodlands, and the doctor was like, oh, she's fine. And, they look at the medical history, and I'm kind of honest, I'm a very honest person. Well, is she updated on her vaccines? No. Well, we're just going to take a urinalysis, a UA, and a CAT scan of the eyes. And I was like, if we're going to do a CAT scan, can we do one on the brain? Well, you don't even have a microwave, because he was kind of joking with me. And I was very holistic with bringing her up. And he was like, you don't want that much radiation around that brain. And I'm like, okay, whatever. This looks neurological to me. I know I'm not a doctor. However, I did work in the veterinary field, and this looks neurological. can you please take an MRI, a CAT scan? Well, she needs to be sedated for an MRI. And I was like, we're here. Well, finish up the antibiotics, trust me. My wife's a pediatrician. So we finished up the antibiotics, it's 4th of July, and she got progressively worse. My child played every single day. She had photo sensitivity. She couldn't stand the daylight. We were like in a dark room. She couldn't even watch TV. Like, I had to put the dimmer on and she just listened. And then we just went to audio tapes and whatnot. And I've been medically gaslighted for so long. I felt crazy. Like, how come no one's listening to me?
So when did they start listening to you?
So after the antibiotic was done, I finally made an appointment with somebody at one eye facility, and they were like, okay, I have a friend who is a pediatric neurologist. Would you be able to see her? And I was like, yes. So this was down in Bel Air, and we were like, there's no way we're going to get seen that day, like she promised. And we were getting gas back in the Woodlands area, and she was like, hi, this is Dr. So-and-so's office. Do you have availability to be here in Katy at 3 o'clock? And I was like, absolutely. So she got to be seen by a pediatric neurologist that day. And the following day, we were having an MRI. And after the MRI was performed, that's whenever we were told, your child has 5 masses in the brain, possibly 6. And I knew. Those lesions turned to masses, those masses turned to tumors, and we're going to take you to a hospital that didn't take your insurance for this MRI, but we're going to take you to this hospital. And I was like, well, we live near the Woodlands, can we just do it up there? No, you're going to go to this hospital. And right then and there, I knew my family could be possibly medically kidnapped. And every single time that people are watching Take Care of Maya on Netflix, they tag me. And I was like, I'm not the only one. So we lived in the hospital doing chemo. Of course, they did a brain biopsy, and she had hydrocephalus. We tried to do holistic treatments over in Arizona. I wanted to go to Mexico, but the cartels were like, the border was shut down. It was war back in 2019. And so we went to Arizona, and I tried to treat her holistically, and the doctor was like, I did not know she was a minor. And I was like, what's the difference? Without the okay of an oncologist and she's a minor, I cannot touch your child, or I would be at risk of losing my medical license. So we came back to Houston, and she needed a shunt surgery. I begged. Oh, we'll keep an eye on it. She stopped talking for about 2 days. Come to find out, the neurosurgeon was on vacation, and she stopped breathing, and then they performed the shunt surgery. But in the meantime, they were like, well, she needs to start chemo because this is just going to get progressively worse, this, and they kind of coerced me because I had 2 options. Of course, I kind of shopped around with the different treatments because one hospital wanted to do a trial, which none of the adults survived. A lot of people don't realize that childhood cancer only receives 4% of funding for trials, and they go through adults, even if they did not survive, and put it on children. So I was like, no. So I found a little loophole, went through the emergency room of where we had the MRI, and I was like, I do not want to go to this hospital because they would be trying to make us do this one treatment. And it doesn't have good success. I read up the medical studies and whatnot. And so there was a doctor who's very well known for holistic treatments, and she and this chief of staff of a doctor butt heads every single time. And she would listen to me and he would outrank her because he was chief of staff. So I could not even fire him after meeting him on the first time. And when people don't realize that whenever you're living in the hospital, you see like 20 different doctors because she had such a rare type of cancer too. She was like the golden goose. Everybody wanted to see her because the chances of seeing a child with ATRT is so rare. So everyone was trying to see her. It was about the 10th different doctor that came in that day. And I was like, hey, Tay, this doctor heard about your strong heart. You know, that's how I tried to prep her, because it's tiring for children. She's
4 years old.
She's a baby. And it was very, very challenging, very challenging. So after this doctor, we met him, talked to him for about 2 minutes, and that's the spiel that I would say, you know, like, hey, Tay, look at me. Hey, how strong are you? Let's go show him. You know, he wants to listen to his your heart. And he was like, no, Mom, I got this. Okay, so me and one of her aunties stood back, and we were like, okay, because I taught my child to be strong. And he was like, I'm gonna sneak in. And he went to go reach his stethoscope under her shirt, and she said in my body and punched him so hard that his glasses fell to the floor and broke. Well, I'll just come back whenever she's sleeping. And I'm like, yeah, you do that. And I tried to fire him then and there, and I couldn't. And ever since that day, we butt heads. So once your child is diagnosed with cancer, you have very minimal rights as a parent. And the realistically hard truth about it is that parents don't have rights. And he even told me that I did not have a choice in the matter regarding certain situations, many situations. And I would even see a police officer walking the halls whenever this happened. So it's more or less stay by your child's side and do what they say, or not, and they'll do it anyway. So I chose to be with my child.
So let's go through the environmental toxins on your daughter, because you believe that the environmental poison killed her.
Yes, whether it be the flu shot while I was pregnant, whether it be the reoccurring strep with antibiotics, or in their studies if you look for them. And then
Studies
we
on
also
antibiotics.
Yes.
On the pregnant mother? Or?
I'm sorry. So whenever she had strep.
Right.
So she had a reoccurring strep, and you know, I tried to treat holistically, but I couldn't. So, I mean, or it could be the air, mosquito spraying with NALED, NALED, that is actually banned in other countries, but it was ordered by the Pentagon back in 2017. And we live by a cow pasture, and it was sprayed over the cows. I started having seizures for the first time in my life, and that's whenever she started regressing in speech.
So they were spraying the fields by your house for mosquitoes
Multiple times a day.
And you could see the planes or whatever they sprayed?
Yes, you could see it. And they even suggested turning off, this is September, this is Texas. They even suggested turning off the AC for many, many hours during the day. But I kid you not, I would see the planes spray, and we would have this like yellowish kind of pollen. And it also kills bees. So we need to outlaw that.
We definitely need to do more on that. And you started having seizures and your daughter
Yes.
started to get sick after. So that's
Correct.
important. That's important. Okay, what other?
And then gabapentin. Gabapentin was prescribed during our cancer treatment. She was also given antibiotics, and there's studies regarding antibiotics and chemo treatment. The combination of the two has less of a survival, and not many people know that with trying to prevent pneumonia. And this was all before COVID. And so we lost her right before December 2019. We just honored her 4th angel anniversary back in December. And I just want to protect everyone's baby. That's it. Because parents need to know their rights first. And second, laws need to change so parents have more authority over their children. Because again, if you decide not to do chemo, then you're medically neglecting your child. And I've talked to several politicians about the situation, and it seems like that I can't get anywhere.
I'm just going to show everybody a picture of your beautiful daughter.
And that's Taylor the warrior.
There you are, there she is, absolutely beautiful. So tragic, I'm sorry. Is there anything else you want to tell our people?
I want to change laws. All I want to do is protect your children, and if you are medically gaslighted, then seek out holistic practices, trying to get to the root. And not only that, but before you do that, get life insurance, because the reality of you surviving a child's death is not very easy, as well as finances with medical bills. You know, it's important. It really is. So now that session is over, I just became a life insurance agent so I can try to protect your children and your families. And I mean, I've been protecting her, or honoring her as much as I can, as well as other children, because ATRT is extremely rare. And whether it be the flu vaccine, whether it be environmental antibiotics, or, you know, birth control, or whatever the situation is, it was environmental, because every single time that we tried to get genetics on her, we were discharged right before the appointment. So I'm sure it's only coincidental. It only happened twice, right? So
Thank you so much for telling us her story. And we're going to put a picture on the bus.
Wonderful.
I appreciate it.
thank you.
History doesn't wait. This is our moment to rise, unite, and reclaim our children's health.
Join us here in Austin, Texas this November at the Children's Health Defense Conference.
In the wake of unprecedented medical overreach and censorship, the world is waking up, and people like you are leading the way.
We're at a turning point in history. With the pandemic behind us, our fight for freedom and health has reached the global stage.
This is our moment of truth, and we're ready to seize it together.
And Children's Health Defense has been at the forefront of this charge. Our 2025 conference brings together the leaders, visionaries, and warriors who made it happen.
Meet the parents whose lives were forever changed, and hear from doctors who risked everything to speak out. Stand with those who refused to be silenced.
You are going to hear from world-renowned speakers, doctors, and frontline leaders driving the medical freedom movement.
Discover real-world solutions grounded in science, integrity, and human rights.
Join the discussion to talk about vaccines, informed consent, parental rights, and so much more.
And you'll, of course, hear from your favorite CHD personalities, sharing the latest on CHD's research, litigation, and outreach.
And while you're there, soak up the energy, culture, and music of beautiful Austin, Texas.
Whether you're a parent, a practitioner, or a medical freedom advocate, this is your call to action to protect what matters most.
Be part of the movement that is rewriting the story for generations to come.
So please join us.
Join us.
Join us. Let's make history together in Austin.